Hey there, it's Tricia with Easy Emini Trade, and hope everybody's doing well. It's been a while since you heard from me in the form of a video. I took some time off this summer from making videos and doing webinars and just focused on trading and running the chat room, and I changed the hours for the summer so I can enjoy my afternoons, and so it was a great summer, but now back to business. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go over some of the setups that set up this week to kind of refresh your memory, and I'll set up a webinar for probably next week, the 20th, and I'll put the link in the email that you're receiving this video on. And I think what we'll do is we'll go over a bunch of the setups, and I'll go over that in just a few minutes. If you'd like more information on the setups that we trade, you can go to www.easyminitrade.com. So what I'll do is I'll go over the NQ. You can apply these setups to anything that you'd like to trade. I would just recommend testing the setups first before you go live with them if you're going to trade anything other than the NQ or the Russell. The setups all work well on the NQ, the Russell, CL, gold. The 3 Amigo doesn't work that well on. The 6E, the 3 Amigo doesn't work that well on. Natural gas, the 3 Amigo doesn't work that well on, but everything else the setups work really well on. And on the NQ we've been doing an opening range zone trade, and that's been working out really well. And it's not in the ebook, but if you attended the last webinar or if you purchased the ebook over the last couple months, you get a video that goes over all the setups, and one of them is the opening range trade. It's really simple, and I'll go over that in the upcoming webinar as well. So this is Monday, the 10th of September, and this is the NQ. And so for our opening range trade, it actually set up for a short and worked out just fine. The opening range trade isn't for everybody because it does require a larger stop. So if the stop winds up being too large, and we don't really know from day to day what the stop is going to be at all, depends on that opening range, because what we do is we put a buy stop and a sell stop in, and whichever one triggers first, that's the entry that we're in, and then the other order becomes our stop. So on Monday, the opening range trade set up for a short, worked out just fine. Then we just chop around here for a while. If you're going to do the kaboom setup, I always recommend making sure that you've got room up to resistance or down to support if you're going sideways. And if you do, then you can still take the trade. If not, you would do better to let it trade through and then look to see if you get a pullback entry or another entry of some sort. So you can see this area of support holding here. We actually have 28.15, and then this area here right below that's holding. So I wouldn't really be interested in any of the kaboom setups, because here we get the indicator crossing below zero, and I would assume that it's going to hold this 8.15 vicinity. So I'm not really interested in anything here that's setting up for the kaboom. Also, if you use the ADX DMI, which is optional, but when the ADX gets under the DMIs, as you see down here on the bottom, good indication of sideways chop, and best to sit on your hands unless you've got room up to support, up to resistance or down to support. So again, it's a judgment call on your part. Here we had a 3 Amigo set up right on this bar here, but it never triggered. And by never triggered, I mean when we get the setup, what I do is I enter a sell stop in a tick above or below the setup bar. And so placing a sell stop under this bar right here where I've got this line, it never triggered on the very next bar. So for me, I cancel my order. You may decide to take it late, provided that the three indicators for the 3 Amigos remain green, meaning the 3 ADXs are heading higher. You may decide to still get in late, meaning then you'll move your entry, in this case, under the next bar, under the next bar. I don't generally opt to get in late, so I'm not interested. Here we actually got a kaboom set up, and at the time this was below the moving average from the broader view. This bar was. So if you wanted to take it, you could take it, and then I would suggest using this area here to the left as the target area. Now I wouldn't use the exact area. I would maybe shoot for, to determine if you have enough room to be profitable, I would maybe use half a point above that area, and then if you get more, if you get through that, then great. If not, then you've already determined that you have enough room to at least get your 2 points out of it if, in this case, you're trading the NQ. Here we also had an Amigo set up. This was on Monday, and this actually did trigger, but it happened really quickly. I couldn't get my order in fast enough, so I put it in here as a no trigger. It actually did trigger, and it worked out just fine. I just couldn't get in fast enough. I couldn't get my order in fast enough. So usually what I do is if I put a sell stop in, I use a range bar predictor so I can have an idea of what the estimated high and low are of the bar, so I don't have to wait until the bar finishes before placing my order. If I get it, in this case an Amigo setup, I can put a sell stop in place. But what happened here was we got the indicator firing off for the Amigo, and price already quickly, like this bar closed really quickly and went on to the next bar. So in this case I had to put a limit order in, and unfortunately, it traded right back up and it never triggered me on the very next bar. So again, if it doesn't trigger me on the very next bar, then I'm not interested. So it did not, because it never traded back down to this area. So just the breaks, unfortunately, because it worked out to be a nice trade. Some people in the room were able to get it, but sometimes it feels like I need 10 hands to get everything done, so I missed that, unfortunately. This was just before the break at 11:30, and this was also an Amigo, fired off, entered in a tick above this bar, and worked out just fine. Now, again, with the kaboom setup, the stair-step looking line that you see here is my moving average from my broader view that I like to look at, so I don't have to have it up on screen. And so for the kaboom setup, I like to take it with the overall trend, and I like to be above that moving average for a buy or below it for a short. So by having it on my entry screen, I'm able to tell pretty quickly without having to look at the broader view. So I'm not interested in a buy here. The only way that I would be interested in taking a buy if I was not above this moving average would be if it was an Amigo, because I don't care about the trend for the 3 Amigos at all. I'll take it in either direction that it's setting up. I don't care about support or resistance on the NQ. We generally can get through everything. However, if you're trading any of the other instruments using the Amigo or testing it, I would definitely recommend paying attention to support and resistance areas using the floor trader pivots with midpoints. On the NQ, nothing's changed. I still like to draw my own support and resistance and just use the pivot point. But so nothing here that I'm willing to do. And here for a short, not interested in the kaboom short, because if I look to the left I can see this area here that's held, so I'm going to assume that it's going to hold again, so it doesn't give me enough room to get my 2 points. And also, if you'd like to look at that ADX being under the DMI, another reason to just kind of sit on your hands for trying to take this as a short as the kaboom entry. So we break for lunch and we come back at 1:30 and we get this kaboom setup right here, and looking to the left, this would be the general area that I would be expecting price to get to. So you can take that there, or if you wanted to wait to see if it was going to move lower or not through that area, you can do that and then take this as a pullback, pulls back here. And what I would caution you on is that these round numbers, this 2800 area, I generally stay away from, meaning I'm always making sure I've got enough room to that area before taking a trade, because I will stay away. I won't do anything in the round number areas because usually we have some difficulty getting through. So pullback works just fine, but we also did happen to get the 3 Amigo firing off there, and this is the one time, or the one of the areas that I will not ignore support or resistance even using the 3 Amigo setup. So with this firing off here for the 3 Amigo, I choose to pass on it because of that 2800 area being there. Works out just fine. So you just have to make that call on your part if you're willing to give that a shot. Otherwise, I really don't mind taking anything in, for the 3 Amigo with support or resistance in the way. Here you actually do pull back again, and you would have an entry here if you were interested as a pullback entry. But again, for me, doing anything in that vicinity of 2800, I pass. Even though it works out really well, I'm not interested in trying something there. And then it never pulls back to the 30 weighted that we use. That's this moving average here, so nothing for me to do there. So you either got in up here, or there's nothing really there to do. If you trade after 3:30, you could opt to take the kaboom entry here. Oops, sorry, there we go, right there. And once again, I would say look to the left and see this area here that's been holding, and determine if you have enough room to be profitable. And you know, you can always take it, and sometimes you get through it pretty easily, sometimes you don't. But you would know going in, okay, well, I've got X number of points worth of space, so I'll give it a shot, and if it doesn't make it, then I'll just take a smaller target. So you can always make that determination. So, you know, again, it's totally up to you, you know, what you want to do with those. And here we've got Tuesday, and we've been in a pretty strong congestion area on the daily chart. So if you look at the daily chart, you'll see the areas that we've been holding out in. So, you know, hard sometimes when we are hanging out in the same areas day after day after day, just going sideways to get runners. And so I will mention that we're getting ready to implement the counter channel continuation setup again with a few modifications. It was a good setup when we traded it. We haven't traded it for a couple years because the kaboom always gets us in much sooner. But because of, you know, the last month or so where we've been, we haven't had much in the way of pullbacks because it'll move and then not really pull back. So the counter channel will definitely, that continuation setup will definitely help us with that. Because a lot of times if you're going sideways, like, you know, let's just look at this right here. This is Tuesday. Again, like I said, I like to be above the moving average from the broader view for the kaboom buy or sell. But if you find yourself going sideways, you're going to find that it's going to run right in the middle of price. So if you find yourself in that kind of environment, you may opt to ignore the moving average from the bigger picture, you know, what side you're on. You know, that again will be a determination for you. I generally will do that if we're really sideways, but for the most part, I'll, you know, just hang out and wait until I get exactly what I want. So here on Tuesday, we get the opening range trade actually sets up to the downside, and it actually set up for a buy and a sell. A lot of people will take them in both directions, meaning if the buy sets up first, they'll take that, and then later, whenever, if the short sets up, they'll take that as well. In this instance, you know, both of them set up and they both worked out. So, you know, up to you. I generally would pass on the second direction. I'll just take the first direction. One word of caution that I would offer you for the opening range trade is if the range is very small, I would stay away from taking it. And usually I like to see that range at least 4.5 points to take it, because the concern is that if the range is really small, then it'll trigger to the upside or downside, and then, you know, right away come down and stop you out, or come up and stop you out. So I will stay away from it if the range is really small. So just thought I would mention that. So nothing for me to really do here. even though here we get the indicator crossing below 0, I'm not interested in trying to take this as a short because I look to the left and I can see this area holding. We're right above our 50% area. This is a 50% for regular, for 24-hour. And so those areas generally hold. This yellow line is the close of the previous day, and this is the pivot point from the floor trader pivots above my head. So to the downside, there's really nothing that I would be interested in doing, even here, because again, you don't know, is it going to, still hold in this general vicinity, or is it going to hold the 50%, or is it going to find its way to the close? So I'm not really interested in trying this as a kaboom setup. And for the buy, not interested in that because I like the slopes of my moving averages from my broader view and then my main one here on my entry chart to be coloring for the direction that I would like to take it. And right here, when you get this buy setting up, the indicator crossing above 0, that moving average from the bigger picture is still coloring for lower, so I'm not interested in taking that. And here we get a buy, but I'm under that moving average, so I'm not interested. So unfortunately, nothing for me to do here on this move higher here. Here you could decide to take a reversal trade, and I won't go much into that right now. I'll go over it during the webinar, but it is part of the ebook. Actually, I don't know if it's in the ebook any longer, but it is in the webinar recording that you get with the ebook if you purchased here in the last few months. Otherwise, if you attended the last webinar, we went over it, and we've talked about it before. I've done videos on it. But a reversal trade there if you're interested. And what we're looking for is space between where you'd be getting in and where the moving average is from the bigger picture, expecting price to find its way back there. So I generally take those off a smaller range chart. But here you had plenty of room, right on here, and you're just looking for it to find its way to that that stair-steppy looking moving average. Here we get a 3 Amigo setup, and for the 3 Amigo, like I said, I don't worry about support or resistance with the exception of that round number up there. So take it, it works out for the 2 points. Here, not looking for a buy because I'm under that moving average. I'm under the 50% retracement, so I'm not interested. This purple one here is 50% for regular trading hours. Here we get an Amigo at 1042, and away we go. So that worked out really nicely as well. Generally, what I've been doing for quite a while now, I used to use 2 points, 4 points, and then trail a third, but for probably well over a year now, I've been taking 2/3 off at 2 points, and then depending on what's around, I'll see if I can hold the third for a runner. But once I get my first target, my stop, I always move to a tick better than my entry, so no matter what happens, I'm profitable. That works for me. It may not be the best way to manage, but I'm happy about being profitable. So again, it's totally up to you what you want to do once you're in. And here, unfortunately, because again, where we're at, there's just so much support and resistance areas around, so it's hard to want to take, for example, a buy right here because you're into resistance. Hard to take a short right here. And again, this is for the kaboom setup. If it was a 3 Amigo, I wouldn't even worry about it. I would just take it, except if I was close to 2800. So here I'm above the 9 weighted from the broader view, so nothing for me to do here for a short. Here I'm right at the 50. So again, nothing for me to really do in this area here. You may opt to take this as a pullback entry right here when it pulls back to our 30 weighted. And it works out fine. And I do use these 2 small moving averages for pullbacks, and that's in the ebook and the webinar recordings as well. So if you're not familiar with it, just look at it and refresh your memory. Here we get an Amigo at 242, works out well. Again, like I said, for the Amigo, I don't worry about support or resistance areas, so I'm not concerned about this 50% area right below me. Here, you may opt to get in under the second bar after you get the indicator crossing below zero, and you would use the 50% area as your target. And that's as late as I would get in on the kaboom, is after the second bar. That's as late as I would get in on that for me personally. And here you get a another kaboom setup, but you'd be taking it right above the close from the previous day. So that would be a pass for me. I wouldn't be interested in that. You may opt to take it hoping that you bust through, but that's a pass for me because I'm literally right above it. If I was below it, I might consider it, but even so, I would still look at the, let's say it's set up and I was under this area right here. I would be looking to this area and see if I had enough room in case it held there again. And this is Wednesday, the 12th. And so off the open, nothing to really do there. I like price to pick a direction unless it's the Three Amigo. So I like price to decide which way it wants to go before trying to take a kaboom setup. So there's nothing really for me to do here right off the open. Here at 10:02 we get a Three Amigos set up, but it does not trigger, so nothing to do there. And if it doesn't trigger, I just cancel my order. Here you could view this as a pullback entry, but the thing is, if you take this as a pullback, you're right at the area of the 50% retracement area. That's what this white dotted line is. So nothing for me to do there with a pullback. The thing about pullback entries is, what I like to do is I want price to be running away without me, and I'm dying to get in. Basically, we're capitalizing on the momentum of a strong move, and a pullback allows us to get in something that's moving. When we implement the counter channel setup again, you're going to find that you'll be able to get in without waiting for a pullback if something's going without you. So again, I'll talk more about that next week at the webinar to refresh your memory, because it has been a couple years since we traded that. And here we get a Three Amigo, and on the NQ I don't care about support or resistance when we get that, so I get in here and it works out just fine. And so a tick below that bar would have you getting in, putting a sell stop in at 675, 86.75. So works out fine. And then once through this area here, then you can be using the close from the previous day. Now, once the 2 points is hit, and you move your stop to a tick better than your entry, and it retraces here, then you basically you have your 2 points and you're out if you're exiting in stages, because this moves, but not before coming back up to a tick better than your entry. So that's the downside to managing in that way. And so nothing really to do here. You could take a pullback here if you wanted to. Pulls back, and everything's in line to take it right under this bar here, basically, and then you would be using the close from the previous day as your target once through this area here. And nothing for me to do as a kaboom buy here, because I'm under the moving average from the bigger picture, so nothing for me to do. And you can be very aggressive and decide to take every time the indicator crosses above or below zero. But where you'll get in trouble with that is when we're chopping sideways. So it's up to you. I like to use the broader view, being above or below that moving average, to do those majority of the time. So, and again, you'd be going against the trend here, but again, totally up to you. So nothing for me to do here with the short, because the moving average from the bigger picture is coloring for higher, and I want it lower, so nothing for me to do there. Here is a buy, nothing for me to do because we're right into the pivot point and technically against the trend. and then it's lunchtime, so nothing for me to do till we come back at 1:30, and we get a setup right here. And I'm not going to go over what happened during lunch because I didn't mark any of the amigos or anything because you know, I don't trade, so I walk away at that time. And this guy actually did trigger. There we go. We got an amigo right here at 138. And you sit through a little heat, but works out fine. Here at 2 o'clock we got an amigo, and this actually stopped us out. It did not manage to get through the 50% area here, so that was a stop out at 2 o'clock. And here you get another amigo set up for a short right in that same area. So it worked out fine. If you were concerned because it held in this area previously, then you'd pass on it. You know, totally up to you what you want to do about that, but it does work out okay. Here as a kaboom buy, I wouldn't be interested because it's hard to see here now after the fact, but the moving averages were still coloring red for that pinkish color for lower, so not really interested in it. And here I'm under it, and you know, let's say that like right now it looks like you were above it, but at the time you were actually below it. But let's say that you were above it, then you just look to the left and see the area that last held and assume just a little lower than that. So if there's not enough room to get you whatever you feel is a good target, then you'd pass on it. Here we get another amigo at 238, and it does not trigger, meaning I've got my entry under this bar and the next bar never trades to my entry, so I cancel my order. So that's how, you know, that's what my personal trading plan calls for. You can decide to get in late. Like I said earlier, it's up to you. I would just make sure that you've got all the 380Xs heading higher, and I would also be careful about taking a late entry in the area of support or resistance. Oftentimes, and you'll see that when I show you today, when you get the no triggers, most of the time, you know, it's the indicator basically doing its job by keeping us out. Because if we're chopping sideways, that's what we want. We want to get no triggers because we don't want to get sucked in and then it doesn't work out. So, you know, I've got no problem passing on the no triggers. And once through the floor trader pivot point, like I wouldn't be interested in a pullback here, but once through and then you get a pullback here, you could opt to take this or wait for another pullback, you know, see if it can go lower, but either way you'd be looking at the close from the previous day. And then after, you know, 3:30, you know, I don't do anything after 3:30, so nothing for me to do with anything else there. And this is today, Thursday the 13th. Oh, and I did want to show you the opening range from yesterday. Let's find it. And so for the opening range trade yesterday, it was a pretty narrow range also. But if you were interested in it, you've got 2,800 right above your head. So I would opt to pass on that into 2,800. If I was going to take it, I would say, you know, shoot for the downside. But because the range was so small, you know, it was a pass. But you know, it did trigger for the buy, but again, right into 2,800, I wouldn't take it. It did trigger to the downside as well, and it worked out just fine. So, you know, what you want to do with that, you know, it's a pretty simple setup. It's just a matter of, you know, you setting up your own rules how you want to trade it or manage it once in. That's the hardest part, is once in it's hard to decide how you want to manage it. We use price projection, and it will give pretty accurate targets, but it's really hard to sit in it long enough with most of the time a pretty large stop waiting for those targets. So what I've been doing is once I hit that 2-point mark, I'll move my stop to 2 points. So if it retraces, I wind up getting at least 2 points. If it keeps going, then I can trail my stop. So I feel pretty comfortable with that, because some days the stop is pretty large. So again, that's the hard part, is managing it. All right, so back to today. The opening range is really small again, so you may opt to pass. Neither direction worked today. So again, I would definitely implement that rule of passing on the opening range trade if the range is too small. So here we get the 3 Amigo setting up, and it does not trigger, so that order gets canceled. Here we get the kaboom, but we don't really have a direction, and we're below the moving average from the bigger picture. So even if I was above the moving average from the bigger picture, I would pass, because I would count on this area still holding. So for me, even if it did set up and all was good and I was above this area, I'd stay away from, again, 2800. And I don't mean to harp on it, but you get burned enough times in those round number areas, and you just stay away. And here's a no trigger on the Amigo as well. And again, you're just going sideways. We stopped at 11 today, FOMC day, the announcement at 12:30, and then the press conference at 2:15. So no point in coming back after lunch, because it usually has always in the past gone till almost 3:30. So not interested in sitting there doing nothing all afternoon. But like I was saying, if you're going sideways, you may opt to ignore the moving average from the bigger picture. And then there's always range trades you can do if you have a tradable range. But not much here today at all. Here we get another no trigger, so 2 no triggers, and then this one does trigger at just about 11 o'clock, but it worked out okay, but it was a pass for me because of the area of 2800 right above my head, so it was a pass for me. So nothing exciting today. Again, if you look at the daily chart, you'll see why we've got so many reference areas. It's because we've been consolidating in this area many times. Go back to August, and you can see in August as well. But like I said, the counter channel will help us a lot, reintroducing that. So I'm excited about it. It's working out pretty well. And so I look forward to seeing you guys hopefully at the webinar next week. And we can refresh your memory and answer questions and so forth. So if you want more information on the setups, you can go to www.easyemintrade.com. I hope that helps. I'm going to try to do a video or two each week just highlighting the setups that's set up in the room, and hopefully that will help get everybody back in work mode again. All right, so thanks you guys, and if you got any questions, you can always send me an email, and I hope you all have a fabulous weekend. And a reminder, rollover day was today. I generally don't roll over until tomorrow, which would be Friday, because the volume is still more on the, in this case, the U contract than the Z contract, which is December. So tomorrow, if I trade, which I don't think I will be trading tomorrow, but Monday, I'll just start up with the Z contract. All right, you guys, take care, and we'll talk to you soon.